Yes.
That's what I was talking about, that you reach a point you need to make a decision, and if you don't have that supernatural wisdom, you will actually fail. That
That's
is what
right.
I was telling them. And I think, actually, God is amazing that you have come when you're actually even a lawyer. So that actually applies, because I think lawyers, it's a profession whereby you always feel, should I say, overwhelmed and also confused. You're like, oh my God, this is happening. What am I supposed to do? Like, you're supposed to make a choice. Is this or that?
Yeah. And I have a very, very interesting conversation on that, but it will be so long. But yeah, like I said, sometimes I think it's more even of a call that you can choose yourself to be.
Yeah.
Yes. And okay, like I said, it's a long story, but I can share the briefest thing on that. I happened to be given on government some other course to do, actually, but still, it was a point for me to make a decision whether to actually go for the law or go for what government had given me. And like I said, it's a call, and it's a situation where you reach and you have to inquire of God's decision to know whether to take on this or not, or find some other things to do. And for me, I would say I was called for this.
You're sure that you have been
I'm
called
sure
for this?
I was called for this. Yeah.
That is a good thing.
Yeah.
So, you're ready. So, you have heard from her. So, right now, I want you to share about your Palm Sunday.
Palm Sunday.
Were you born again? Like, your family, is it born again?
Well, yeah, actually, if I could talk about my family history, yes, we are born again.
Wow.
Actually, if I could say, my mother got born again first, then the children followed, I could say. Then my father gets born again.
That is
Also,
an interesting story.
Wow. It's really an amazing story to tell.
Yeah. So,
I could say they are.
I actually shared my insight about how Palm Sunday used to be back in the village, where actually the Saturday before, it was like a public holiday. We would all be in the bushes, looking for those palm leaves, looking for flowers, looking for a person who can design them for us. Like, you have to go to church when you're feeling proud of what you're holding in your hand, and then you shake with a lot of vigor. You look at it, like, immediately look at it, the designs, you actually even get happy. And then when that time comes and you're like, it's time to shake, you look at church when it's all colorful. But then these days things have gone on changing. Someone just gets out of the car, buys it, and just takes it to church. No flower, no design. Like, it's a normal thing. They just actually, when they're shaking, they just shake for the sake of shaking.
Okay.
Yeah. And then maybe the other thing we're talking about, us being Jerusalem and welcoming Jesus back into our
That's
lives.
right.
Yeah. That when this Palm Sunday, we are all looking at, we are making it normally for the Israelites. Not the Israelites. Oh my God. These guys in Jerusalem welcoming Jesus. And now, as putting this thing into our daily lives, that we are doing this event as something to just as a remembrance thing, but then we should also take time to think about it. Let us be the Jerusalem welcoming Jesus into our lives. So what's your say about that?
I would agree, totally agree, and say, because a story is given, an account is given of Jesus. I think it's Luke's gospel that gives a detailed account of this event. It even starts way back when Jesus was commissioning one of the disciples to actually go and find him a donkey. Was it the young one of a donkey? I don't know. And when he reaches the entrance of some city, he'll find there, he calls it, I don't recall what he calls it, but I think it's a young one of a donkey, something like that. He'll find it tied there and tie it, bring it. If the owner asks, he should tell him this and that. He actually finds these very things. There's also a story there on when Jesus commissions and stuff. But then, let's go to the whole gist of the story, that now Jesus goes into Jerusalem and people are actually happy welcoming him, laying down clothes for him to pass, and all these things are shaking. It's the same thing as Christians, and even people who are not yet born again. This is how you should receive Christ in your life. You should actually be glad that he's coming into your life. You should be happy. The Bible says in John that the devil came to steal, kill, and destroy. But he came to give us life, and life in its abundance. So you should actually be happy that you're receiving the Christ life. And it's an amazing time to have Christ in your life. It's a beautiful journey to walk with Christ. So it should be for all of us. It should be just a day, Palm Sunday, of just shaking the palms in
Yes.
church. It should actually go beyond that to actually going back into our homes and reflect
On that whole act.
And reach a point of receiving Him into our lives. Not just when we are needy, not
Yeah.
just when we are maybe have a lust or something,
Exactly.
but to a point where we know we cannot do anything in our own strength. We cannot do without Him, and you actually need Him in your life. You to walk with Him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And our generation, it has come to the point whereby people actually go to church out of duty.
Thank you.
And they're like, you know what? It's a Sunday
It's a
anyway.
Sunday.
I have to go to church. What new thing? Actually, even after church, whether you ask them, what new thing was there? Like, I just went to church.
I know.
And maybe they will get like one word and they're like, the priest said, what did even the priest say? But anyway, it was about Jesus. It was about Jesus, guys. It was about Jesus. You know, and that is it. And maybe for those people who have actually felt the only way out is to go to church. I don't have a job. Let me go to church. So like every single Sunday they go to church just for a job. Like, God, give me a job. God, give me a job. So it's the same thing as telling them that you're asking for God for a job. And even when you don't have that job now, you're not giving Him that time. So what if He gives you that job?
Can't you move out of church completely?
Obviously, exactly. That is the thing. Like, you're just doing it just because you want something. That means if you get that something, your devotion is going to reduce in one way or another.
Yeah.
That's why we have seen people, maybe they are once committed, but then when they become rich, they have made it in life, they are famous, they're like, how am I seeing that I'm in church? How do they see the whole me going to church? So, yeah, I think we have also seen it. Though it's, I think, a mindset that has been brought up in very many people, and changing it is quite hard. It's quite hard. They're like, now for me, if Jesus doesn't give me a car, that is it. That is all I want from Him. So, and maybe also, what is your say about being persistent in prayer? Should we just go to God when we were like, maybe my business has failed, let me go and pray?
Okay.
Or you feel we need to pray like every single moment, like every time you get and you feel like, oh my God, you need to go into that presence. And with what attitude should we go within that presence? Should we go with the attitude of, oh my God,
that's a good question.
Yeah.
Okay, so we shared from our theme scripture this morning. It is from Colossians 4, chapter 4, verses 2, that continue in prayer and watch in the same with thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Well, you asked a very fundamental question. Like, do we go to God because we are needy or something? Being persistent in prayer, for me, it's I would put it this way. But actually, it's not about the long hours you be praying. I'm not saying praying for these long hours is wrong. No, I've also been I've gone to events where you have to pray for like 3 good days, night and day.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's wrong. Now here comes a question to ask, then what is the right way to pray? What then is being persistent in prayer?
Yeah.
And it's a very good question. And what it means for me is it's you cultivating that relationship with God, of praying even in the lightest moments. You could be in class and maybe your first lecture is done, waiting for the second lecture to come in, and you could take off just a few minutes to maybe thank God, and maybe you take off some minutes to pray about something. Those lightest moments you could ever think of. So being persistent in prayer, like we've said, it goes beyond just hours. It's not something just about hours. But then a parable is given still, I don't recall, I think it's in Luke from chapter 1 to verses 8, chapter 18 from verses 1 to 8. A parable there is given of a persistent widow, if you call that narrative to cut it short, of a woman who goes to the king and she's always seeking justice over something. And then this judge reaches a time and is like, because actually the Bible calls him the unrighteous judge.
Yes.
Yes, because of how this woman was continuously coming to seek her justice, to seek, you know, this judge at the time is like, but because this woman has over troubled me, because she's always here, you know,
bothering me,
let me do this for her,
and
so
she gets off my neck.
And she gets off my neck.
Yeah.
So God poses a question and he says, if this unrighteous judge found it worthy to grant justice to this widow, now let's put it now to, let's say God actually never gets tired of us.
He never. That's why he says, actually, whenever you puzzle do anything, he will never get tired of answering your questions.
Thank you. Very good. So if actually the Bible really highlights it, that if actually this unrighteous judge actually found it worthy to grant this woman her desires, what about our God, who is righteous, who never gets tired of us, who is actually wanting you to actually be in his presence all the days of your life? I think it's Psalms that I think it's a psalm that where a psalmist was making a prayer that his prayer is that he might dwell in the presence all the days of his life and inquire in God in the Lord's temple. So it's just beyond the hours, like we said in the first place. We said it could be just these lightest moments we could have with God.
A few seconds.
Then also, you asked a very good question, that should it be just when we are needy?
Yeah.
Really, it wouldn't be fair also, as if you could just put it to human context.
Exactly.
If I just use you to just come to you when I need something, and maybe I'm not there when you also need me, or I don't show up for the most important things, but I just come when you need when I need something from you. Really, it sounds transactional.
Sarah, today I need 50k. You give it to me, I disappear for 3 months. Sarah, today I don't have food. You give it to me, I disappear for a year. I come back.
You know, you just come to God and say, God, I need that car. Maybe he gives you that car.
You first disappear.
With all your lasting, just lasting for a car, he gives it to you. Then you go, then you come back, God, I lost my job, I need a new job. Then he gives you. Really, that is just transactional. And as Christians, we shouldn't be transactional, even in our daily lives, even as how we relate with people. It's so good to keep the relations at least good. You keep checking up on people and all that.
Relationship doesn't last long if it is just transactional. And we can also see that within friends, that there's always that friend that you share with the good and bad moments. That is now the relationship we are talking about. And then how close you are. But then also you examine the friends you have. These ones that actually normally come to you, the ones you just go to just because you're in a problem, that you text them like, hey, you know what, today I got into an accident. And then also get to these friends whereby when you get an accident, you text them. Even when you have a party that the same people you call, it is a different vibe. Even though you invite them all together at the same table, the way you vibe with a person who is just transactional.